What's up, everybody? How's it going? Welcome to the stream. I am Ian Douglas. I am the author of the website techinterview.guide. And tonight I got a little something special planned if Jonan shows up. Actually, whether or not Jonan shows up, I got something planned. But hopefully Jonan will show up because it's for Jonan. So we'll see. Jonan, if you're joining us, drop a hello in chat. But if not, we understand. But if you're not Jonan, you can also say hi in chat. Tonight's plan, got a little agenda on here. I'm going to go through a couple of resume reviews. I was hoping to try to get someone on the stream tonight, but it didn't work out. So I'm going to go through 2 resume reviews and then maybe a couple of more questions from the Q&A session from the other night. Kind of went through like a marathon of, gosh, more than a dozen questions, I think. It's Carmen. What's up? Danny, hello. Good to see y'all in chat. Coding more. Hello. Hi in chat. Cool. So I'm going to do a couple of resume reviews and then maybe some Q&A. We'll see. But as always, I mean, if you got questions about interview prep and career prep and stuff like that, drop it in chat and we'll go from there. But if Jonan shows up, if Jonan happens to show up, I got something special planned for Jonan. And if not, I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway, and he can watch it later. But Jonan, if you're there, say hello in chat. I don't know whether he was actually going to make it or not. I tried reaching out, asked others to kind of poke him, but given his circumstance and so on, I can appreciate why he would not be here as well. So we'll give him a minute, and then we'll go from there. So how's everybody doing? Hope you had a good weekend. The weekend's almost over. Starting to cool down quite a bit in Colorado. Actually got kind of chilly last night. Went and hung out with some friends and sat out on their driveway and had a little bonfire thing in one of those little like bonfire pit, like portable bonfire pits, and made me wish I had one. Because it was nice just sitting around pretending it was a campfire without all of the back-breaking camping of actually sleeping on the ground and stuff. But good times. Hope you're all doing well. Anything exciting going on this week? Anybody got anything fun going on? Handful of viewers. Jonan's here. Hooray. Jonan, it is really good to hear from you. Cool. Well, I'm going to kick this off with a little something that I made for Jonan. So bear with me on this. So I got some stuff I want to read and then a little something. So the Jonan Show says, I'm Jonan. Hello, Jonan. So the whole motto of my channel is to share what you know and we all win. I've always been a huge believer in kind of sharing the knowledge that we have with one another, because that's how humanity has kind of grown and passed along stories and information over the years. We've all used tools like Stack Overflow and open forums and message boards and stuff like that to learn something or ask for help. And I think it's really important for us to kind of pause and recognize just how many people there are out there that are willing to share what they know. I've had a lot of folks here on the live stream alone, but there's so many people out there offering tips and tricks and tutorials and everything to kind of help us learn and to make ourselves better. And so I want to kick this off first off by saying I encourage all of you to find some time this week and write 2 thank you notes to people who have helped you in some way. Not fishing for them myself, it doesn't have to be me, but find 2 people that have really impacted your life in a positive way and have helped you grow, and just write them a little note expressing some gratitude for sharing their knowledge or wisdom with you, and let them know that you appreciate them. So one of our community leads who's on our chat, so hello Jonan, Jonan Scheffler, he was at a tech conference recently. As I understand the circumstances, it's a little vague. Got into like a headbutting contest with a car. And while we never got to see the pictures, you should have seen the other guy. In all seriousness, Jonan was quite hurt, but he's home recovering. And I myself have learned a ton from Jonan. In fact, the car won? Oh no. In fact, this whole live stream got off to a rocky start until Jonan actually sat down with me and offered several hours of his time working with me to kind of fine-tune audio settings and so on. Although you still have to put up with my voice, at least the audio channels work now. And so, Jonan, I just want to say I appreciate you. I appreciate the time that you spend with people in general, but just me personally. You've been a good teacher to me in a lot of ways, and I love just tuning into your show. as well. So when I heard that Jonan had been hurt, I actually reached out to a whole bunch of people online and asked if they would be willing to contribute a little something to a get well message for Jonan. And so I want to share that on the stream tonight. So Jonan, I wish you the very best and a speedy recovery, and I hope that this little thing brings a smile to your soul, since bringing a smile to your face may not be comfortable. So I'm going to go ahead and play this and let you enjoy this.
Hey, Jonan. Glad you're home safe and on the mend with your family now, instead of in LA hurting in a hospital. Moving forward, when you want to ride a scooter, let me know. I got a helmet for you whenever you need it. It works with scooters really well. And then I got another helmet too if you need one for a snow speeder or an X-Wing or any rebel crafts. Get well, buddy.
I hope you feel better soon.
Hey, Jonan, so sorry to hear about that. You're good people. You don't deserve that. Really hope you're getting better. Hope you're resting up. Really hoping to see it become so. Definitely feel better very soon.
Hey, Jonan, just wanted to drop a message real quick. I know you're not feeling too well. You had a little bit of an accident. I hope it wasn't karaoke related. If it was, I hope I'm not the one to blame. But seriously, get better soon. We need you back in this big world, buddy. So take care, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
Hey, my friend. I know that you had been in a car accident and then that you broke all the bones in your face. So, anyways, I hope that you are still handsome as you were. But anyways, I hope to see you soon and get well. Take care. Ciao.
Hey, a few years back at Ruby Kaigi, you took me and a bunch of us out for ramen in the middle of the night, and you got me back home, safe and sound, despite me not doing a lot of international travel at the time. I was still learning. I remember it. I appreciate it. I was really sorry to hear about the accident you were in. I'm glad you're not hurt worse. Get well soon, man.
Hey, Jonan. I'll keep it short, but just wanted to wish you a speedy recovery and thinking about you, man. And, looking forward to chatting again soon in the future. Take care, brother.
Jonan, Jeffrey Matthias here. Thinking about you, buddy. I hope you heal well. I know they do amazing things these days, and I'm confident that you're going to be in awesome shape. Just take your time, do what you need to for yourself. Don't pressure yourself to get out in the world too quickly. But I wish you a speedy recovery nonetheless. And now I have to admit that this was actually just an excuse to show off my awesome curtains. I don't really care how you're doing. So, no, seriously though, take care, buddy.
Hello, friend. I'm so sorry about the face. I really hope that it's not as bad for you as it looks in the pictures, because my goodness, it was really rather awkward to have a fracture both sides. And I hope that eating isn't as bad as it looks like it could be. And if it is, that hopefully that improves quickly and things like laughing and things aren't getting in your way of having a nice time. So I really wish you all the best for a quick and speedy recovery, and hope to see you around soon. But and also, if you need me for any reason, I'm here to have a chat. So always be aware that you can pick up the technical phone and give me a call. Take care and fast healing.
Hey, pal. The words cannot express I don't even know how I feel, but I just want to say I really hope that you continue to recover and that you're feeling real better real soon, and you take care of yourself, my friend. That's the focus. Everything else can wait.
Feel better soon, Jonan.
Hi, Jonan. From one dumpster fire to another, I just wanted to say you're keeping it real. Too real. Tone it down. Get better soon.
I hope you can hear me okay. Alabaster testing calls. Hi, friend. Welcome to your intervention. Please stop fighting cars on the weekend. Well, I hope you get better soon because I miss my friend. And yeah, bye.
Hi, friend. So no more near-death experiences, please and thank you. Please rest for a change and get well soon. We need you to do lots more good things in the world, so
You gotta
get
come
better.
hang out more too.
Also that.
Yeah, and just it's a good thing you have such a hard head.
It's true. Very hard head.
So
Yeah.
that's all I'm saying.
Get better, friend. See you soon.
Yes.
All right, so I hope that brought smiles to many faces. It seems that folks in chat enjoyed it for sure, but Joan, I really do wish you speedy recovery. It's not fun going through that kind of stuff. So from our hearts to yours, please get better soon and let us know if we can help. But take time to recover and just know that the community that you help build is around you and willing to help you back. So please let us know how we can do that. All right. Cool. Hearts for Jonan. All right. Hashtag no more headbutting cars. All right. Cool. Well, I appreciate Jonan. I very much. Like I said, I've been a huge fan. Please go follow Jonan. When he's feeling better, he'll be running a live stream. But some of the folks that you saw in that video helped Jonan on a stream. And they're all amazing people, and they love to share what they know and kind of their experiences and so on. Jonan's also on Twitter and tweets a bunch. So go follow Jonan in all the places and send him a note and let him know that you're thinking of him. So Jonan says in chat, my face was already leaking, and then you made a video specifically designed to make it leak. Yeah, not sorry. Yeah. So Jonan, I'm going to send you the link for that YouTube video later on so that you got a copy of that. And if you want the originals, I'll send you those originals too. So just know that we care about you and we hope that you're doing well. All right, so that was it. Now on for happy stuff. So, well, I mean, that was happy too, but less face leaking stuff. Thanks, Jonah. Appreciate that too. Cool. So tonight I want to do a couple of resume reviews. I had a couple of them sort of backed up. And one of the folks that I'm doing the resume reviews actually in the chat, I saw them send a message by. So I'm going to get through that pretty soon. And then, I'll probably just finish up some more Q&A that from what we did the other night. Because I've got like this gigantic growing list of questions. And I have a lot of fun doing the Q&A and then like splitting it up and getting that stuff out on the podcast and stuff like that. So cool. Put it in the rainbow folder. Yeah. So I actually tried reaching out to New Relic as well. And someone at New Relic's like, oh yeah, I'm going to put something in our Slack channel and get a whole bunch of people to contribute videos. And I don't think any of them did, unless you know that they were in those videos. But Randall's, I think, made me laugh the hardest. So hopefully laughing doesn't hurt too much for Jonan right now, but hopefully you're laughing on the inside. Because I imagine with a bunch of broken bones in your face, laughing is not as much fun for you as it is for us. But I hope that brought a smile to you, to the inside of you at least. Cool. All right. So Jonan, go rest, go recover, go be your best self, and hopefully we'll get to hang out at RubyConf, or at least while you're in town. I don't know yet if I'm going to get a ticket for RubyConf, but when you're in town, definitely hit me up. And we'll spend time, and I'm going to take you out for that drink I owe you for helping me out with the stream. So, cool. All right, well, let's get to some resume reviews. And let me get one panel changed over here. I'm going to do... Where is that panel? Spent all day planning video stuff, and I didn't plan for my own, resume thing. Oh, let me do... Browser, no, window capture. Browser, all right. Let me get that sized properly here. All right. So we got a couple of resumes here. One of them is a little bit longer because this person had a bunch of prior experience, not necessarily in the tech industry, but definitely got a handful of things that we can look at. Now, I asked if they were anonymizing their resume, and they're like, nah, don't worry about it. Please don't dox this person and call them, because I'm pretty sure this is their real contact info on here. But so as usual, I like to start by kind of zooming out on things and kind of get a sense of sort of the balance on the page and things like that. One thing I would probably recommend right away, Doi, on this is to put your contact information on page 2. It's not as likely anymore that people are actually going to be printing out a copy to look at. But what you don't want to have happen is for page 2 to go missing, and then later on someone finds page 2 and they're like, what was this for? And so put your contact information at the top of page 2 or something, or just put your name and say like comma page 2 or something like that. Now, we do talk a lot in the tech industry about like, oh, you should only have a 1-page resume. Even I myself, I've been doing this for 25 plus years, and I can still make a 1-page resume because I'm really just boiling this down to what's important for that company to see. Now, in Doi's case, they're trying to find, I believe, their first job in the tech industry. And so it's we'll talk a little bit about kind of like arranging stuff and rearranging stuff on here. But I would say like probably not as important that your resume becomes like a 1-page, but it really depends on the background that you have, the background that you're bringing, and how we can kind of rearrange things a little bit. So, all right. So with that in mind, a couple of things that we'll start off with. You got your email address, you got your phone number, you've got a website to, I guess, like a portfolio site of some sort, and then your GitHub. And these are all good links, but be consistent with your links. This one's got the protocol in front of it, and the second, your GitHub one does not. And so I would say like on the GitHub one here, make sure you put the protocol in front, or take the protocol off the Netlify one here, just so that your links look consistent. Like a little bit farther down where you're linking your project, you're also including the protocol in here. And so just make sure that that protocol's in there, all the places. I think you could probably rearrange some of this contact information to be over here on the right side. You get this big block of empty space over here on the right side. And I wish I had my better drawing tools set up on my Windows machine, but you got all this empty space over here. You could use that for something. And so you could move maybe some of your contact information, maybe move these links over here, maybe add LinkedIn on here as well. A couple of other ideas. So, as a hiring manager, as a HR, I want to get to your contact information as quickly as possible. And so the easier you make that for me, the more likely I'm going to kind of like look at this resume and go, yeah, I want to like get in touch with this person. I've said in the past, the summary for an entry-level dev, I'd probably ditch the summary. You've got more important things to put on here. And I would say you could probably leave some of this as cover letter material and, or phone screen kind of material. And try to see if you can get this down to 1 page. And we'll kind of like go through and talk about some of this stuff kind of as we go. Now, when it comes to the technical skills, you'll hear me say a lot on the stream that you should kind of rearrange your technical skills in sort of what we call strength order. And so, this would tell me that React and Redux and Redux Saga and whatever way better than, like Git and GitHub. And all of that way better than project management and Agile and REST and so on. And I'm generally not a fan of like these 3 really wide columns. I think going left to right in like a couple of lines is a more economical use of space, in my opinion. So I would probably do like a bullet point and just say languages, where you list, let's see, you got JavaScript on here, you got CSS, HTML, you got SQL on here. So whether that sort of constitutes like all the languages that you want to represent on your resume, and then the next one could be like frameworks and libraries, or the first one could be languages and frameworks, and the second one could just be libraries. So on the first one, you would list like JavaScript and then Node.js and then just React. And then on the second line, then you'd put like Redux and Redux Saga and stuff like that, and jQuery as libraries and so on that you've used. And my camera's acting up again. Hooray. Let's go shut that off, turn it back on. Something funky going on with the USB bus on the new Windows machine. But all right, so from here, and then I'd probably do like a third bullet point where I would just list like additional tools or things that you've built. And under there, you could list things like Git and GitHub. Let's see, Bootstrap I would include on that second bullet point for libraries. Google APIs could be on that third bullet point, like these are just other tools that you've used. Material UI maybe. and then like other skills. And on that other skills, you could list like your project management. Agile. Agile is not all caps. So the Agile sort of methodology of how we do what we do is just capital A, and the rest is lowercase. And then for REST, I would probably actually spell this out as like RESTful API, but is it API consumption or API development or both? And so you probably want to be a little more clear instead of just having just REST on here, is be a little more clear what that was. All right. So Doi went to Prime Digital Academy, and I did a talk for them recently, and full stack software development student. This is great. I like that Doi doesn't level himself on here. This is something that I've been giving some thought to lately. He doesn't call himself a junior engineer or aspiring, developer or anything like that. He's just full stack developer. So that's great. This is all you need. In fact, you could put that as a title at the very top next to your name, just so I can see, that you are calling yourself a full stack developer. Full-time high-intensity program. I learned multiple programming languages, best practices. Okay. Bullet points. I generally try to not let a bullet point wrap around to a new line. And so trying to find a way to shorten this up, I think would be ideal. You could just say like full-time immersive program, comma, multiple programming languages, comma, best practices, comma, full stack environment. You don't necessarily have to call out full and back end environments. You can just say comma, full stack environment. And I think you could get that all into one line quite nicely. Solo capstone, I love that you got this kind of stuff broken down and that we can kind of see that that's part of Prime. Now, you're listing this as professional experience, and this may sort of give a little bit of a, what's the word I want to use? I think misleading is a bit of a strong word to use here, but Prime Digital Academy, like you were a student here. It's not really professional work experience. So as a hiring manager, as an HR, when I see professional experience, I'm looking for where have you actually done this work and gotten paid. And so if these were projects for school and you were just at Prime Digital Academy as a student, it doesn't really qualify as professional experience. I would list Prime as education, so have like an education section where you list that, and then maybe a project section where you list this stuff as your project work. But it doesn't really, like, to me, it doesn't feel like it's actual like professional experience. So anytime I would put professional experience on my resume, it's stuff that I got paid to do. But since you're paying the school to do this, it doesn't count. So let's talk about the project at least. I'm not a fan personally of the vertical bar, especially this last one here, where then you're putting, how long the project took in parentheses. I think the parentheses would be unnecessary, but I think you could also just change that vertical bar to just a comma. I think that would be enough of a separator. The vertical bar is actually pretty interruptive to read. That's just my take on that. I developed an app. You can remove those words right away. It's like, yeah, this is the app that you developed. You don't need to tell me again that you've developed it. So again, just finding the sort of the redundant language on here that you don't need to share. I like that you're starting with a user empathy statement though. Like this is what the user is going to use this app for. I think that this is a really strong kind of way to start telling me about your project. I like that you're taking a moment to actually say like, hey, from a user's perspective, I'm showing that, I built this for a particular kind of user in mind and a particular kind of workflow. And so saying users can search for recipes that they have and add missing ingredients to a shopping list. And favorite their recipes or something like that. So I think you could shorten that quite a bit just to get down to the nitty gritty of, users can search for and favorite recipes, comma, add ingredients to a shopping list. So again, it doesn't have to be grammatically correct, but you do want that bullet point to not wrap around to another line. So when human beings read bullet points, we only pick up like the first 5 or 6 words, which means I developed an app that would allow users ingredients to a shopping list and favorite technologies. Like this is really all people are picking up when they're skimming bullet points. They're only picking up those first couple of words, which means all this stuff out here, like it's not really registering in our brain. And so you don't want those bullet points to be too long if possible. Technologies used. So a lot of the stuff that you've mentioned here, you've mentioned up top. Although in this case, you're just calling it Saga and not Redux Saga. So again, just being consistent about that. You also list Postman as a tool here, but you don't list it up top, which is fine. You can use a tool on a project and not list it as a skill. That shows somebody that, yeah, I used a tool, but I'm not really familiar enough with it to actually answer like interview questions about it. But if you've used it in several projects, like you used it down here on your group project as well, then you could list that as a skill of a tool that you commonly use. Like that's sort of in your toolbox and something that you regularly use. I would probably add that as a technical skill up top. And that would probably be in that fourth bullet point or third bullet point of just like other tools that you use. And then like Postgres, just being consistent. Like Postgres has a lowercase g, but it does have the capital SQL on there. But then you don't list Postgres up here in your skill block at all, and yet you've used it on 2 different projects. So again, just look for those kinds of things, like what tools have you used on a lot of projects, and if you are comfortable speaking to like just, you know, as a user, I'm a user of Postgres. Like it doesn't necessarily mean that you've been an administrator of a Postgres database, but that you're familiar with like how to get into like the Postgres client or use an ORM or whatever to talk to Postgres. You know, you can certainly list that as a skill up here as part of that top content. And then yeah, for this group client, this is a lot of words. I guarantee you nobody's going to read all this. Unless you're like an exceptional candidate or somebody in the company knows you, HR is probably not going to read all of this content. If you've been doing networking and somebody there knows you, and they say, hey, like you need to check out this resume, and they go open it up, then they're more likely to read like a lot more of the content on here. But this is a huge block of text. And I think you definitely need to reduce this a little bit. So start with kind of that user empathy statement again. Like tell me like what was this project, like who was the project for, what do they do? And then from there, I would boil this down into like what are like maybe 1 or 2 major features of the software that you wrote. And then because this one was a group project, tell me what your responsibility on the group was. Like was there a particular part of the application that you spent time building? I think that would be an important thing to kind of convey on the resume. That way, if I go look at the project, because you're giving me a live URL, when I go look at that project, and I think like, wow, the front end looks amazing on this, but then I look at your resume and go, oh, you built the back end, or you know, you focused on some other portion of it, but not necessarily the UI. Then it doesn't get my hopes up or my expectation of like, oh, this person's going to be amazing at UI UX, if that wasn't what you focused on for that particular project. So again, it sets my expectation as the person reading your resume to think about what it was that you built. You were the lead engineer for navigation, so I can kind of pick up like a few things in here, but this is a lot of text, and I guarantee you nobody's going to read all of this. So try to boil this down. Now, if this is kind of that long form resume that I often talk about on the stream, and I've got a whole YouTube video about building a resume, and I talk about building like a multi-page resume and then like bring it back down to 1 page when you go apply for a job, then you can kind of pick and choose like which of these points would be important to tell that company for a job that you're applying to. So you can kind of choose at that point, like, do I want to talk about, being the lead engineer for that navigation process, or do I want to talk about how we used PDF files, for, that printed format, like what's going to be important to that company? Because I guarantee not everything about this project is going to be important or really stand out and go, oh, we need to call this person. Look at what they built. Like, look at this thing that they built. And so as you're doing that company research, you're going to be able to sort of narrow in on what's important to the company and only tell me that stuff on the resume. That's going to help bring this back down to 1 page. Because like I said, this is kind of a lot of content. And then, as far as the technologies used, JavaScript, capital S. So again, be really consistent and be really careful about, capitalizing things properly. I don't think Postman is all caps either. So maybe go see how that's actually named and just make sure that that's on there. I like that you've got a link to the live project, but I would probably want to see a GitHub link on here as well. And so for this and your capstone, if you can also give me a GitHub link, that way I don't have to go to your GitHub account and hope that, your repo is actually called no time or that your repo is called 100-Year Manifesto or something like that. Because if your GitHub repo is actually a different name, I'm not going to be able to find it. And so you're definitely going to want to give me like a link to the GitHub on the resume here as well. Jonan's still hanging out. All right, so Jonan says everyone should use PDF files always. Yeah, Jonan and I have this love-hate relationship over PDF files versus doc files. And I think where we agreed was applicant tracking systems need doc files, but humans need PDF files. I think that's kind of where we settled our agreement / argument / getting ready to fight about whether karate belongs on a resume. I think that's about where we got on there. But yeah, I love hanging out on Jonan's show, and like someone asks about resume, and we start trolling about PDF files and so on. Good times. A treaty? Yeah, maybe it was considered a treaty at that point. Cool. All right, so the second page then, so Doya is listing like a lot of additional work, and I do believe it is important to show that you've been professionally employed somewhere. Someone somewhere has trusted you to be an employee. They've done something, you've gotten paid for that work, and so it's important to show that. Now, do you need to show this much information about all of this work? I would say if you're applying for like a food prep kind of company, you could list a lot of these jobs. Like if you were going to go apply for a job at, say, HelloFresh or something like that, as a developer, you can say like, hey, I've been a line cook, I've been a prep, type of person. I know what goes into this, and so I understand the importance of how this part of what goes into the product actually affects the business, and so it can be important to show that kind of stuff. Otherwise, I don't think you need to show nearly this much information to everybody that looks at this resume. I think that you could definitely trim this down. And so kind of the advice I've sort of settled on a little more recently, the first job that you list, you can have more bullet points. The second job will have fewer bullet points. And by the time you add these other jobs, it may be just a single bullet point. But again, you only want to list those jobs if they're really important to the company to which you're applying. So you're gonna have to kind of like figure that out a little bit, or you could just summarize it and say like, hey, between 2012 and 2019, I worked 4 different jobs, as a line cook, sous chef, pastry chef. You're making me hungry now just looking through some of this, by the way. And if we ever meet up in real life, you owe me a pastry. But I would try to like summarize this stuff and condense it down a little bit more, especially if you're gonna get this back down to 1 page. All right, let's see. I think I've had so many problems with consistency with the doc files. Yeah, and one thing that I've actually done and shown people, for example, is I'll highlight all the text on here and I'll actually copy and paste it into just a plain text editor so that you can actually see what the ATS sees, or the applicant tracking system. So in PDF format, sometimes the stuff ends up out of order, or I've actually seen resumes where it literally put a space in between every character, or another case where it actually took out all of the spaces between all the words. And so it's just this mash of like one giant word in the resume. And that makes it really hard for the applicant tracking system to then track all the keywords. And in the case where it put a space in between every character, it literally couldn't track any keywords at all because it didn't actually see all those letters together to form a single word. In Word doc format, while the formatting may be a little bit harder to achieve, the applicant tracking system is actually going to read those words better. But I do agree with Jonan, PDF files for humans, because it does keep the layout a little more consistent. So you can build this in like a Google Drive or a Google Doc or something, and then you can export it as both a Word doc and as a PDF. And so if you're sending it to a human and you're going to like email it to somebody, email it to a hiring manager, or email it to someone to get feedback, you'll send them the PDF. But when you apply online, if you're applying online, it's probably going into some kind of applicant tracking system. I recommend giving them a doc file or a docx file, either one. But yeah, it does seem that the automated systems are tracking the keywords out of the Word doc a little bit easier. And this is just research that we're learning over this summer, as we've been talking to people on the stream, and I've been kind of talking to people on the side, saying like, hey, how do these applicant tracking systems actually work? and they're actually coming back and telling us this stuff. So it's not just me making this up. It's not just Jonan making this stuff up. We're actually getting information from other people to relay to folks like you, so that we can share that information with you, because this is how we learn, right? I hear a thing, I tell you, now you tell someone else, and so on and so on. Cool. The reason I went back far with all the restaurants was because it's a big deal. Oh, it's a big deal place in Minnesota. It's a great talking point and icebreaker. Cool. And so that's fine. I think if you can bring that kind of stuff up as icebreaker, but I think, again, you could probably condense a lot of this stuff down and just say, like maybe put the dates, for example, like over here on the right edge. That'll free up some vertical space. You could reduce the number of bullet points that you list on here. So, if Waldman Brewery or Lucky Oven Bakery or whatever, like if those are the important like name, recognizable names, then they're going to see that and go, oh, cool, you worked there for a certain amount of time, and just give like a single bullet point maybe of like what you did there, because while this is part of who you are, it's not the identity that you're trying to have going forward. Like you're sort of identifying now as a software developer, and so you don't need to give 40% of your resume to your old life. I think you can condense that down a little bit and still show them like, hey, I was professionally employed, I worked at these cool places, but you don't need to fill up like 2/3 of a page on a multi-page resume now just to tell me this kind of stuff. So yeah, just my thought, just my perspective on here. And then, so now you're listing Prime under education, which I think is fine. I would probably, since you've just given me years for everything else, I think just putting a year on here is fine. It's a 20-week program. You may want to say like when you're expected to graduate or the month that you graduated, just so they know, like, did you graduate like a month ago? Are you graduating a month from now? Like, when in 2021 did you graduate? Because I might look at this and go, well, did you graduate in January and you've been looking for a job since? Because as an employer, that tells me a little bit about like what's your job hunt been. But if you just graduated, so if you say, like September 2021 or something like that, I'm like, oh, you're a like brand new grad, you're just starting your job hunt. Again, it sets my expectation a little bit differently. So you may want to consider putting a month on there, but you don't have to because you've just put years on everything else. Volunteer, nonprofit, again, this stuff is amazing to have on a resume, but I would say it's probably like something that could probably get taken off the resume if you need the space, because ideally you would bring this back down to one page as an entry-level dev. Now, you've got a lot of previous experience, and that is important. You are bringing this as a person to whatever that company is. And so it does kind of help shape the identity of who you are and what background and experience you're bringing. So I'm not saying like get rid of all of page 2 completely, but I think you could condense it a little bit. And I think if we can kind of come up here and we can like condense the technical skills, because also the font size on these skills is bigger than the font size on the rest of this. So the first thing I would do is come in here and I would just highlight all that text, like just Control A on all the thing and set everything to 10-point font or a 9-point font, just so that everything's the same size. And then go in and set your name to be a new size and set all these headers to be a different size and leave everything else the same font size. So I think if we can bring all these technical skills down to like 4 lines, we get rid of the summary completely. Now your technical skill block is going to take up about the same amount of space that your summary is. So now we've freed up this much space. You've already given me Prime as education, so that'll free up space here. And I think if we can condense all of this down to take up roughly this amount of space from the technical skills to professional experience, if you can kind of condense all that project work down to take up this much space on the page, now you've got the whole bottom part of the page to kind of, highlight your other work experience and maybe that volunteer experience. And you could get this down to 1 page. Again, by only showing the stuff that's going to be relevant to whatever company where you're applying. And so I think that this resume actually makes for a really good start to having that really big, long form resume where you're listing all of this information. But then when you go apply for a job, you're going to trim out the stuff that's not as important to them or as relevant to that job and bring that down to 1 page. That would be my take on that. Let's see, you got a couple of questions. So Coding More asks, should you host all your projects on the same hosting service? Should it be GitHub, since it's the most widespread? Would non-technical hiring managers be scared off from checking a project on Heroku, etc.? They may be a little bit unsure what HerokuApp.com is, and so you may want to say like live site and then list the URL, or you can just make live site the actual like clickable text, so that they don't even see it's on Heroku or Netlify or wherever you're actually hosting it. I don't think it's important to host everything in one kind of place, or if it's on multiple different kinds of places. If anything, I would say hosting on multiple places shows me that you've got some variety, that you know more than just Heroku. If you also know Netlify and you know DigitalOcean and you know AWS, like if you can host a project on all those things, now you could start listing like DevOpsy kind of stuff up here in your technical skills. Like you're familiar with, lots of different ways of deploying code, or Travis CI or something like that, where you actually like deployed code using some other tool. That could be something maybe as a side project or something. But no, I don't think people would be wary about HerokuApp.com. It's just they may not know what Heroku App is, so you may want to just put a little link or text in front of it saying this is the live site, or just make the link the words like live site and they can click on that from there. But yeah, good point, Randall. And then Doy says, appreciate all the tips, definitely looking forward. Cool. I guess I actually clicked on the Heroku link there. Cool. Just label everything the cloud. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everything's so ambiguous now. It's all just someone else's computer. It's listed as someone else's computer. Cool. All right. So hopefully that was helpful. Like I said, I think that this is a good start. If you want to make that long form resume, I think that this is a good place to get started, and then just trim everything else out. So it's kind of goes back to that riddle I like to tell people. Hey, someone just cheered. Hello. Kind of goes back to the riddle that I tell people, like, how do you make a sculpture of an elephant? You start with a giant block of concrete and you chip away everything that doesn't look like an elephant. And we can apply that same riddle to a resume for the tech industry. We start with a big resume and we start chipping away everything that's not relevant to that company. And now you look like the best candidate for the job because you're only showing them what they want to see. And then you can send that resume to them. Meanwhile, you've still got the long form resume that you're going to constantly add to and change. And then when you apply for another job, you make a copy, you trim it down to one page. You take that long thing, you make a copy, you trim it down to one page. And you'll find it's going to get faster and faster to do that, to where you can open this long resume, save a copy, trim it down to one page in probably less than 10 minutes. And now you've got a custom resume to go apply to another job. And then if you find that you're trimming the same stuff over and over again, then you may want to consider taking that off the long form resume. Like, if you realize after a while, it's like, oh, you know what? I never tell people this point. I'm just going to take it off. But I think it's a good idea to leave it on there too, just in case someday it might be relevant to somebody. Cool. All right. Well, that was resume number 1. So hopefully you get some ideas out of that. Again, you don't have to do it my way. You don't have to do it Jonan's way. You don't have to do it like any one person told me to do it this way. I'm a big believer in just hearing other people's perspectives and then forming your own opinion on what you want to do. So if you want to keep it as a 2-page, you can keep it as a 2-page. I would definitely put your name and like a page 2 header or something on that second page. But yeah, I can pretty much guarantee no one's going to read this much text on your resume. So you're going to want to trim some of the content down a little bit. Cool. That was resume number 1. Let's jump over to number 2. So number 2 was anonymized. So let's do the same kind of thing. We'll kind of like zoom out a little bit, and just kind of get a feel of like how balanced is the page. And the first thing I notice is this big honking like chunk of empty space down here at the bottom. And a little bit up here in the top, but it's not so bad. But yeah, I think we could probably expand this one out a little bit to make sure that it actually fills the page. And so we'll dive in on this one a little bit more and see, like, could we expand on some things or rearrange some things in a way to consider, just filling that out a tiny bit more. Overall, though, I'm kind of a fan of the layout. It's pretty clean. The one thing that sort of stands out is that some of these headers are left justified. They're up against that left margin, but then things like experience and education, you've centered on the page. So again, from a consistency point of view, I would push all those headers to the left, or I would make them all centered. And I think left justified is probably a little bit better here. So you've got link to Gmail, GitHub, portfolio, and your LinkedIn. Those are all fine. Again, me personally, I'm not a fan of the vertical bar, but you can keep it in there if you want. Job title, full stack developer. So I would probably just get rid of job title and just put full stack developer, like make that really prominent on there. Otherwise, if I'm looking at this going job title, like what's job title about? Because you've kind of written this like a summary. And again, for an entry-level dev, I would probably ditch the summary and put stuff on here that actually needs space. Now, in this case, because you're not using the whole page, it actually makes sense to write a summary to actually fill up some space. But I would just call yourself full stack developer. And so you could start, like I would just make that title full stack developer, and then just start with like, I have a background in graphic design, adding experience in JavaScript front-end programming. I wouldn't say front-end based programming. I would just say front-end programming and Ruby back-end database development. Enthusiastic about integrating functionality and aesthetics to boost users' engagement. So users probably needs an apostrophe in there, or to boost user singular engagement and user singular experience. So just being consistent about that. But you want to be careful about being too buzzwordy with this kind of stuff too. Like I would probably write this in a way that's relevant to the job to which I'm applying. So if they're looking for people who are enthusiastic about integrating functionality, then put that on the resume, because now you're using their words on your resume. And when they read that resume, they're like, this person sounds like us. It's because you're using their words. And so if they've got those kinds of phrases in their job post, put those on the resume if you're going to fill up a summary like that. Technical skills, kind of listing all the stuff out like that. That's fine. GitHub workflow. Yep. So JavaScript and Ruby, and then listing Rails and so on. Yep. So I think that generally this list of technical skills is pretty good. It's pretty concise, and I would read this as your JavaScript developer who happens to know Ruby on Rails and knows some HTML, and you kind of know these other tools. And so again, you're going to rearrange this based on that job post. So if the job post is looking for a Ruby developer that knows JavaScript, you'll probably take Ruby on Rails and you'll bump that over to the left side of the list and list JavaScript next. I think that would be an important way to sort of differentiate that. And then technical projects, I think this section is good. Again, I would start with like a user empathy statement of some kind. So you're telling me the name of it, you're telling me it's a solo project, which is great, or a paired project, and then giving me a link to GitHub and then a demo site, which is fine. But then tell me like what is this for? And I usually tell people, like, if you're doing the elevator pitch, you're literally on an elevator with someone and you're trying to convince them like, hey, could you give me 50 grand to run this as a business? If I'm on a elevator, let's say Jonan's the billionaire and I'm trying to get 50 grand out of Jonan, I'm not going to say, Jonan, I implemented a secure signup and login through Ruby on Rails using bcrypt. Ding, Jonan walks out going, what was that about? Like, you don't tell me anywhere in here like what this project actually is. Like, what is Trading Post? Is it like an e-commerce kind of thing? Can people go in and like add their own things and then arrange to like do an exchange of some sort? Is it meant to be like a Craigslist sort of like classified ad kind of site? Like, you don't tell me anything about what the project is. You tell me how you built it, but tell me what it is. Like, who's the user that you serve by building this? Who did you build it for? By showing that user empathy, I think it shows potential employers that you're thinking about the end user, that you're just not like, yeah, I can build techie, geeky stuff. You throw money at me, I'm going to throw code back. But like, tell me why you built this. I think that's an important differentiator on this kind of stuff. Jonan says agreed. I think Jonan's just agreeing that I made him a billionaire in our little fictitious store here. But no, I think it's important. Like, tell me why you built this. Who did you build it for? Like, what's it about? You don't give me any information about that. Same thing with Deja Brew, which is a great name, by the way. I love Deja Brew. I think that's a fantastic name. Acquired data from Open Brewery, accessed Google Maps API. So I'm guessing, okay, well, users can favorite breweries and write reviews, something like that. Like, tell me why you built it. Like, tell me what the thing is all about. Jonan says in chat, it shows them you can see the bigger picture. Exactly, yeah. I also consent to being the billionaire. Awesome. Go win that lottery so I can actually call you the billionaire. But yeah, let's, like tell us a little bit about it. I would maybe even do that not as a bullet point. So like on a line in between here, just add like a statement, make it left justified right under deja brew, and then the line under that, then start with the bullet points. And I think the bullet points are good. They're pretty concise, although some of them get a little bit long. I think you could trim them up a tiny bit. But you're giving me good information here. Like you're using the Google Maps API, use the Open Brewery DB API. And so you're telling me that you can consume APIs. I think that kind of stuff is great. I would list that up here as a technical skill. Just list API consumption as a technical skill. I think that that's an important thing to sort of set you apart. Retrieve data from third-party API to randomly display 10 questions with corresponding answers. So in this case, hey, look at that, user statement. Test a user's trivia skills with random generated questions. So they did it on that project. Do it on the others. Again, I think it shows that you have a little more insight into what you built and why. And then experience, so production manager, UPS store. So here you're kind of filling out the page as best you can. One thing that I would probably do on the projects, maybe to expand them a little bit more, is just add a single bullet point listing the tech stack of what you used. You could even move these links into a bullet point and list that after the tech stack. So your last bullet point, or your last 2 bullet points, will be the tech stack and then links. And again, it's just going to expand that stuff vertically on the page a little bit, because you could use a little bit more of that page. I think that could be an important thing here. Looking at the dates on here, you've got like 9/2017 to 5/2021. But here for this job at UPS, you sort of zero pad the 1. So just look for those kinds of consistencies. And then here you've got a space before the year. So again, it's just an eye for detail kind of thing. And then down here for this job in North Carolina, I think it's important just from a consistency point of view. That kind of stuff is going to stand out and go, attention to detail. It may not seem like a big deal, but you leave a space or a semicolon in the wrong spot in your code and your code doesn't work. And so it just shows like you can pay attention to that kind of detail. This person went to Flatiron, full stack web development, Ruby Rails, JavaScript program. Again, if you want to kind of expand this vertically, I would put Ruby and Rails program on the next line as a bullet point. Similar to kind of how you've listed out your experience. So it would be like the name of the school, maybe the name of the certificate, and then a bullet point of what you learned. You could probably build that out here. University of North Carolina, Bachelor of Arts. You don't really tell us what the subject is. Like, was it a BA in economics? Was it a BA in business? Or was it just like, general studies, which is fine too. But I would probably want to see like maybe a tiny bit more. If you want to add that to the resume, then you could expand that information a tiny bit more. But yeah. I think that's pretty much it for this one. I mean, being a one-page resume, like I said, I like the format. It's nice and clean. It's easy to read. It's a lot more concise and sort of to the point. Just this one bullet point that wraps around the line. So I'd probably trim that up a tiny bit more. So yeah, hopefully that'll give this person a little bit of information here. Their name was John. So John, hopefully that was helpful for you. Anybody in chat got anything else that they would give John as advice on a resume? Since we got a whole bunch of folks hanging out on the stream, anyone else got anything that they would share with John? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Really, I just need an excuse to take a drink. Nothing else? All right. Cool. Well, that was pretty much it for the resume reviews. Coding More says, sorry, my phone screen is too small to see well. Okay. Trying to read in between the lines, read in between the letters here. Cool. All right. Well, I think we'll call that a wrap then for the resume reviews. Yeah, small. Cool. Let's hop back over to some Q&A. So the other night I started on some Q&A and I got just a boatload of questions. Excuse me. I've been paying attention to a handful of sort of new forum and discussion areas and things like that, and found just some really, really good Q&A kind of questions. I also did a Q&A thing over lunch for some students, and they also asked some really, really great questions. I'd love to hear everyone else's opinions on some things here too. And so we'll kind of dive in a little bit, and I'll kind of talk briefly about how I answered some of their questions. But if all of you have other thoughts or comments, you're welcome to share them, and I can pass them on to the students as well. Their number one question was like, how do you know what a fair starting salary is? And we talked a little bit about geography and how, companies in the Bay Area were asking people like, hey, if you move out of the area because of quarantine and you're going to go work remote, we're actually going to pay you less money, and how a bunch of the big like tech companies, like FANG companies, started getting into a little bit of bad press about that, because it's like, well, you've been paying me this much money to do the job, and now just because I move, you want to pay me less money. Where the company's stance was, well, we were paying you all this money because you lived in this geographic area, which is really expensive to live, and that's why we were paying you this inflated salary. It doesn't mean if you go, live in the middle of nowhere in Montana, that we should continue to pay you, $300,000 a year. You could practically buy Montana for $300,000 a year. Why should we keep paying you that salary? And so it kind of went back and forth, and some tech companies relented, and some tech companies kind of held firm of like, no, we're going to base your salary based on where you live. And so I talked to this particular class of students about how to understand their value, because when it comes to the point in the whole interview scheme where they say like, hey, what's your salary expectation? And we've talked on the stream in the past about, how do you dodge that question without sounding rude? But I think at the end of the day, like in the past, I used to give students some advice that said, well, just not play dumb, but like play naive a little bit and say, you know what, I'd rather get through the interview process because I'm kind of new. I'd like to see how you evaluate my skills and like you tell me what my skills are worth. But over the past year, I've kind of thought about that advice that I used to give out and realized that it does kind of come across like you don't know what you're worth. And I think that could be a tiny bit negative on you, that you don't know the value of your skill. Because I think that's something that developers should learn and, again, share with one another. I think it's important to share that information so that we're all playing on an equal field, especially with so much like disparity when it comes to pay gap and things like that. I think that it's important that we as the employees feel comfortable talking about that kind of stuff. I think it's important. It's an important thing to do in tech. And some companies try to limit how much we talk about our salary, but it's not legal for them to stop us from talking about it. And so I think that having an awareness of what our value is a powerful tool when it comes to negotiating in these jobs. But the only way that you can know that is to talk to other people and to go get that information. So I was talking about different websites like levels.fyi. There are a handful of websites where you can kind of see like Bay Area sort of salaries. But levels.fyi is a website. It tends to list just a lot of FANG companies, and small companies can't afford those kinds of salaries. And so I think being able to find some information about that, maybe as you're doing your company research and you're doing your network and your outreach with people, and just say like, hey, I'm just trying to get an idea of like a starting point. Do you happen to know what the company is paying for an entry-level role? You don't have to ask them what their salary is because they may not feel comfortable talking about it. But you could say, do you happen to know what the company is paying entry-level developers if you're in that role? If you're a senior-level dev and you're talking to another senior-level dev, you can ask them, like, what's the band, which is kind of like a minimum and maximum sort of salary for a particular skill set. You don't have to ask them where they are in that band, but you could say, like, do you happen to know what the salary bands are for different sort of levels within your company, and see whether they can find that information for you or just share the information if they already know it. I think that can be a powerful tool. Again, you're not really like cheating the system at all, but having an awareness of what your skills are worth, I think is a powerful sort of bargaining chip in your pocket when you're dealing with that side of things in getting a job. Another question that they asked, which was kind of interesting, was they were saying, well, you've been in the industry forever, like cue the Jurassic Park dinosaur music. How has the industry changed over the last decade plus? And I'm like, well, for me, it's 2.5 decades of time. And so I was really sharing with them, like, be adaptive and willing to learn. When you sign up for a career in tech, you are signing up for lifelong learning. You are just constantly going to learn on the job. I'm learning new technologies all the time. I'm learning new languages or a framework, and it may not be like super deep, but now I can say I've at least looked at this particular tool and what I like about it and what I don't like about it, or, you know, I found this part of the documentation a little bit frustrating. But I mean, hopefully I've also got some time that I can actually sit down and give that feedback to the company and say, like, hey, I like using this tool, but this part of your documentation is kind of garbage. You know, could I make some recommendations, or here are some recommendations, just to show that I'm happy to like share that content with them. I think that can be kind of an important, or like a good way to let them get to know you, that you like using their tool, but you're also willing to make their community better by contributing to that kind of stuff. And so I was saying, you know, the industry has changed quite a lot. Like how I wrote code 25 years ago, we don't even write code that way anymore. I mean, way back then, we had these big like chips that actually fit into a circuit board, and these chips that were like, you know, probably 2 inches long and you know, almost an inch tall, or an inch wide. You know, they only held like 16 kilobytes of memory, maybe 32 kilobytes of memory. Like, you know, the technology back then just wasn't there. And now like an SD card the size of my pinky fingernail holds like half a terabyte of data. And so you kids these days don't know how good you got it, having to not super optimize your code to actually compile it down that it's actually going to fit on this tiny little chip. We don't really have to worry about that anymore. And also when we're, you know, building that kind of code for the, you know, this chip storage back in the day, we didn't want to use object-oriented programming because that just inflated the size of the binary that we actually compiled down to, and it wasn't going to fit. You know, that little chip was the actual storage plus the RAM of like the usable memory that you were using to actually store data. And so you had to be extremely careful about how many variables you used and how much space you actually allocated and things like that. You had to make sure you freed up some of that space afterwards, or, you know, figure out how you want to reuse it and so on. It was very meticulous kind of work. I think later on in my career, I think that actually made me a better developer when it came to optimizing code, because now, you know, the first thing in my mind is like, how do I make this code smaller? How do I make it faster? How do I use less memory? Because I had to go through all of that for the first 4 years of my career. And I think that can really change the mentality of how we write the software that we do. I love what Randall dropped in chat. Optimize your code and get off my lawn. That's great. Kids see a floppy disk now and refer to it as the save icon. Yeah, exactly. Good times, good times. Thanks for making me feel extra old. So yeah, I mean, the industry has changed a ton in the last decade, and like even just in the last 10 years, much less 25. And I like to joke all the time, like, oh yeah, in the time I've been streaming now for the past hour, we've seen like 3 new JavaScript frameworks get released. It's not quite that fast paced, but I mean, we constantly see new tools all the time. We see new libraries and we see new things coming out all the time. And one thing that really stood out to me, I went to a Ruby conference back in 2017, and someone actually made, I think it was 2017 or 2018, they made a comment like, everybody that sees your project for the first time is an entry-level dev. So if they're seeing your library or your framework or whatever for the very first time, no matter how much experience they have, they're an entry-level dev suddenly. And so you have to make sure that that documentation that you write, because you're going to write documentation, has to cater to people that have never seen this before. They don't know anything about it. They don't know how to use it. They don't know how to set it up. And you can't make presumptions about somebody's skill level when they're coming to use your tool for the first time. And so I think that that, you know, just keeping that kind of stuff in mind is extra important. Cool. Got some new folks hanging out in chat. Hello. Cool. Appreciate you dropping by and saying hi to Jonan. For those that missed it, we started the stream with like this 5-minute video of a whole bunch of friends wishing Jonan speedy recovery, and just saying how much we appreciate Jonan and sharing knowledge with us. Cool. Well, we've been going a little over an hour. Does anybody in chat have questions as well? I'm happy to take questions kind of on the fly too. Joan says, I slept 16 hours today, almost time for another nap. I feel that. When I had my shoulder surgery, I slept quite a lot for the first couple of weeks, and the painkillers definitely helped facilitate that for sure. When I didn't want to be in pain, I was sleeping, which was fantastic. So yeah, definitely get rest. That will definitely help. Trying to think of how to pronounce the first part of that username other than but less cool. Oh, l'espionage but less cool? Cool. He also looks like himself now. Yeah. Cool. Appreciate the follow on the first time chat. Welcome to the stream. Cool. So we did like a little tribute to Jonan. We did a couple of resume reviews, just going through a little bit of Q&A, just some interview prep kind of Q&A that I like to do on the stream. I kind of got this growing list of questions. Every time I run a Q&A session, people send tons more questions, which are fantastic. And sometimes they're duplicates, and that's okay too, because I like to kind of show how my own thinking changes over time. So I'm not like super rigid in my thinking. But yeah, one of these days I want to have someone on the stream and actually do like Q&A with them and also hear their thoughts on that kind of stuff too. Let's see. Have I made anything interesting on my 3D printer recently? My youngest wanted to go out for Halloween as a griffin. And so my wife made him a griffin costume, and made like the wings kind of hanging off the shoulders, and they come way down his back. And we 3D printed some eagle eyes to attach to a hat. And I actually found someone who'd done a 3D scan of an actual eagle beak, and I printed that on the printer, and we stuck that on the top of his hat. I originally sized it so it would actually fit over his nose, and we could like put a piece of string around him so he actually looked like the eagle part of the griffin, but it was decided that it was going to be part of the hat instead. My wife did a fantastic job making this costume. She did a really good job. She actually started making it back in August, and turned out fantastic. So I was happy to kind of 3D print a few things for that. What else have I 3D printed lately? Well, the light panel that I used to have on the back wall, I've been 3D printing little frames that those things snap into. So one of these days, now that my arm's actually getting quite a bit better with the physical therapy, I want to paint that wall and like put that light display back up. But because it's a textured wall, the lights kept falling off. And so I found these frames that will actually then screw into the wall, and the light will mount into that, and then they're all connected with some little circuitry stuff. And so yeah, that's kind of the next project I got going. Is I'm like, well, the person that made the frames had no way to make the frames kind of line up, so bear with me a sec. All right, so this is the light, and this is it's made by Nanoleaf, and so it's just these little light panels, and they connect on the back using just little circuit things that attach in here, and they connect side by side. But typically you would just put like some little 3M sticky tape on here and then stick that on the wall. But because that wall is textured, you can already kind of see the texture back there. They kept falling off the wall, and these things aren't exactly cheap. And I got tired of picking them up off the floor. And so I actually found somebody who designed this little frame that you can 3D print, and the light actually just snaps into this. And as long as your printer does an okay job creating it. And so you just line that up, and then it just snaps in there, and now that's mounted on the frame. And then the frame, of course, just screws into the wall. They got these little screw holes. But one of the things that they didn't design when they designed this was a way to line these things up together. And so how do you make these things straight? And so what I did is I got out all my fun little measuring tools, and I actually made, it's a little hard to see with the light. There you go, you can see some of the texture in there. So I actually made these things to actually fit inside of the actual frame itself. And so now when that lines up like that, now that thing's perfectly square. And so now I can just do like a whole panel of those. And now when I put it up on the wall, I know that these are all perfectly lined up. And so like just being able to design stuff like that, but also keep it like super thin so that the profile of this doesn't make it sit out from the wall a bunch. So that was kind of fun. So just figuring out like, how do I make that little join piece to attach these things together to get those lights up on the wall? So that was kind of fun. Yeah, so I've been having fun like nerding out on that, and then I 3D printed the Stream logo. That's the company that I'm working at right now. 3D printed a pumpkin, so that pumpkin head actually is on a hinge. So this is my little pumpkin friend. This is someone else's model, but it just sits on a hinge, and it's meant to be a candy dish, and it just kind of sits on a hinge. The funny part is like having it back there with the light is the eyes actually go dark and then kind of glow like he's blinking, which is kind of fun. So yeah, that's pretty much it as far as the fun stuff I've been 3D printing. We're getting pretty close to a winter carnival that our kids do at school, and we usually like mass produce like a bunch of 3D printed like fidget cubes and fidget spinners and stuff like that for the kids to sell at this carnival as a fundraiser. One of them is doing a field trip to Southern California, and so we got to raise like $1,500 or something ridiculous to pay for that. So we'll be mass producing stuff here shortly, like keychains with their names on it and little fidget tools and stuff like that. So it's been a lot of fun. Let's see what else is going on in chat here. Lesbianage, gotcha, cool. Let's see, if I decide to switch gears and try to get a DevRel career early in my developer career, how could I leverage my many years of former experience, industry experience as a bartender and bar manager on my resume? I think it's actually going to be really easy to do that because you've had a lot of interpersonal like connection with customers. I think that would be the number one thing I would highlight is how to like actually make that connection with people. Now, as a bartender, those people tend to be, well, what's the family-friendly way of saying it? They are well at ease, having consumed things over their time, as you are bartending. But you're still making a connection with them on a personal level. And I think that can really play a lot into DevRel. I had like just a very tiny bit of experience as DevRel. When I worked at SendGrid, I would actually go to conferences with the DevRel team, but not as DevRel. I was just an engineer at SendGrid. But I love to kind of play DevRel, and I would follow them around until they got to a technical question that they couldn't answer, and then I would sit down and I would work with that team of people. So whether they were doing like a hackathon or just going to a technical conference and they're trying to explain like this is what SendGrid is and this is what SendGrid does, this is how to use the API to send emails and blah, blah, blah. I could actually sit down and explain, okay, well, this is why we built it the way that we did, and this is how the inner workings, kind of happen, and here's all the ins and outs and all these extra features that you can use with the API. And so I could actually sit down and get like way deeper into the weeds than some of the DevRel team. Now the DevRel team there were absolutely amazing, and I love a lot of the guys that were on that team. And not guys, there were all genders represented, and just fantastic people. They absolutely love helping people and share knowledge, and I think that's it makes for a very good trait as we kind of work on community and building communities. Like people that do DevRel are the community builders for sure. And so I think, you could definitely leverage some of that as your background for sure. Jonan asked, how much time do you spend checking out a portfolio site when I get a resume? Depends how compelling the resume is. If I look at the resume and go, this is someone I think I want to call, it goes into a pile because I got to get through all the resumes first. And then when I go back through that pile, now I have to narrow that pile down to who do I really want to call? Like the first pass is like, yes, they're interesting. And then from there, it's like, I need to get this person on the phone. And so from there, I'm going to like read the resume a little more carefully, and I'm probably going to start clicking on their project sites and stuff like that. And if I see it's a Heroku app, I know that it's going to take like 30 seconds for it to spin up. And so, I know to be patient for that kind of stuff. I'm not like, where's the site? It's offline. This person doesn't know what they're doing. I'm aware that it takes time to spin things up. So I'll usually like just open up all the links in new tabs as I'm reading the resume, so that by the time I'm done kind of rereading the resume, all those things have loaded. But I'll glance at it. I'll spend maybe, a few seconds, 30 seconds or so looking through their projects. I may, and if a project looks really compelling, I may go into their GitHub for that project then and take a look at what's their commit history look like. Do they have good commits? Is it like fixed a thing, fixed a thing, fixed a thing, fixed a thing? Or is it just like I went in and I, updated blah, 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 and I refactored such and such? I like to look at, was it just adding a bunch of code? Was it refactoring and removing a bunch of stuff? Did they ever deduplicate a bunch of effort? Because again, those are the kinds of things that you're going to be doing on my team. And so I would want to be looking for those kinds of things in the commit history. I would also look to see whether anybody ever did a code review on a pull request. Like, did they ever make a pull request on their own repo, and did someone ever give them a code review, and how did they respond to that code review publicly, or did they respond publicly? And then on group projects especially, seeing whether they gave a code review to a peer as well, and what kind of code review that was. I think, again, it's just very telling about what they're like as a developer. Cool. Other folks showing up. Viable clan member, good to see you. Silver's hanging out. Good to see you, Silver. Random question. Have you ever changed jobs due to the language that was being used? Maybe you consider it to be a dying language, and then went on to talk about 3D printing. I tell people frequently, don't get hung up on technology, because tech stack's going to change all the time. And when I was at SendGrid, for example, the dashboard that we were building at the time was written in PHP on a framework called Symfony with an F, not PH. And Symfony was an okay framework for what we needed to build at the time, but the longevity of it wasn't going to be there. So we started rewriting it in Rails. And then over time, that whole Rails project got rewritten as like a front-end, back-end split app, where the back-end, I think we had started writing in Python. The front end was in Backbone, and then the back end we changed from Python to Go. And so if I were to like get a job at that company and say, we need people that know PHP, I'd be like, ew, PHP, like that's, to me, that's not interesting anymore. I mean, I did like a decade of PHP, and I think it was a good technology to kind of get my feet into web development and understanding back-end development and so on. It was a decent enough language to get started on that back in the day. Nowadays, though, I would rather be building backends in some other language that is a little friendlier to use. Me personally, it's just my own opinion, than PHP. But if a job is like, we need you to know a little bit of PHP, it could be that they've got some old system hanging around that they want to convert to something more modern, and they need someone that can go understand that language so that they can modernize that application into something else. So it's not necessarily a bad thing if they ask if you can do something in an older technology. But I've never left a job because they wanted to use like an older technology. I left a job one time because they wouldn't move away from a technology. Kind of a long story there, but basically they sort of wooed me for this job with the understanding that everything that they had done was written in Perl, and they were going to move everything to Ruby on Rails. And so during the interview process, they're like, yeah, we're going to go train everybody on Ruby on Rails. And we're just going to port this whole thing kind of all at the same time, and everyone's going to get paid to learn Rails and implement Rails, and we're going to have growing pains, and that's fine. We're going to go make this thing happen. And I'm like, that's awesome. You're going to pay for this? Like, this is a company I want to work for. If you're going to invest that kind of time and effort in your team, I want to work for a company like that. Well, I get in there, and my first day on the job, they're like, we need you to change a phone number on the website. And the phone number was just a static image. It wasn't even text. And then they wouldn't let me change the image because that's the graphic team's job, not your job. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do for the other 7.5 hours of my day? And I'm like, I guess I'll go learn some Rails stuff. And they're like, oh, no, that Rails thing, that's like 18 months away. And I'm like, no, you told me that was part of the interview process. Like, this was like an imminent thing. And they're like, no, we actually decided to push that like way off. And I'm like, okay, well, then I'm not going to be here. Like, you promised me that you were going to invest this in your team, and now you're not doing it. And so I decided just to walk away from that job. It was the only job I literally walked away from. I literally went in one morning, I wiped the computer, and just walked back out, and didn't even say goodbye to anybody. I just went in, wiped it, and walked out, and just left. Actually got a call later from the recruiter that got me the job going, did you quit? They thought they saw you in the office, but your computer didn't have anything on it. I'm like, yeah, I'm done. And they're like, you should probably like tell them that. And I'm like, oh, I was planning to, like, once I got home. I was actually commuting home when they called. And so I wrote them a note, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not coming back. This is not the job for me. And I kind of outlined some of that feedback for them. So yeah, good times. Let's see what else we got going on in chat. Do you expect to see code reviews by juniors coming out of code school? It's not an expectation, but it's really nice to see if you can. Not every coding school or coding program is going to be set up to do that. I've seen a lot of code schools where they don't actually do group projects. It's just a whole bunch of solo projects, which, you know, has its time and place as well. But I think having worked on a group project is helpful. And, you know, when I taught at Turing, for example, we would tell them like, hey, during this group project, like make a pull request, give each other like a code review. Like it helps build that kind of stuff up. And again, I think that sort of thing can really differentiate you in an interview. Or in a scenario where they're trying to evaluate one candidate against another candidate. You know, one candidate's got experience doing pull requests and doing code reviews, and the other candidate just worked on solo projects. I would probably err on the side of the person that's worked on a team and knows how to collaborate as part of a team effort. But it also depends on how compelling the projects are as well. So, you know, like I wouldn't just look at that and say, you know, all things being equal, this person's worked on a team, I'm going to hire them over this other person, because the other person could be, you know, way more, you know, modern with what they're doing and have like better technical chops. And so that could outweigh things too. But a lot of what I've been talking to the team at Stream about, plug to my employer, is how can we change the interview process where we can just focus on the people, where we can find the people that are good at collaboration, that are good at problem solving, that are good at working as part of a team, and worry a little bit less on the technical skill, because we can train them on the technical things. But it's harder to train someone how to go through like the collaboration cycle of what we do. And so I'm still trying to fight that battle a little bit. The company's trying to grow really quick, and so it's hard to like implement that kind of change in a hurry and like drastically change how we're doing our interview process. But it's something that I feel very strongly about. I think that that's kind of a game changer when it comes to how companies interview, that it really needs to be like a collaborative communication based interview and less like technical interrogation. Like, do you know this piece of trivia about your programming language of choice? Like, it shouldn't be interrogation. It needs to be conversation. But trying to flip that and try to decide, okay, well, you know, this candidate, we're going to do this other way, and we're going to see how well that works out. And do we hire them or not? Like, do we take that risk? Because it's risky to hire somebody and not have them work out. But I think if we can focus on the person and understand the soft skills that they bring, and if they're going to be a key sort of element on the team with those soft skills, I would rather hire that person myself. And let someone like me who's been in education worry about, you know, let's get them up to speed on this part of the database thing that they didn't understand well during the interview, because we can get them up to speed with that as part of their onboarding. So we'll see how that plays out over time. Plenty of Discord servers where you could post your pull request URL. Yeah, exactly. And this is kind of how we started the whole stream. Like, there are so many communities out there of people that want to help. Now, you do need to be careful, like just finding some community that's willing to give a code review. Doesn't mean they're going to be nice about it, because I think that there are still some pretty toxic people out there that'd be like, you know, do you even know how to code? Like, what is this garbage that you want me to look at? Those people exist, unfortunately. And so you do need to be a little bit careful about you know, putting your code out there, especially as an entry-level dev. You don't want somebody to discourage you and make you feel like you have no idea what you're doing, and now you don't even want to be in tech because somebody, you know, super toxic was the person that happened to give you that code review. And so I'd say, like, hang out in that community for a little while and learn who you can trust to ask for a code review, and then ask for a code review. I think that's definitely the way to go. So yeah, tons and tons of community out there. Lean on those communities. We're all here to help. You know, Jonah, once you're back up and running, I'm looking forward to hanging out in your stream again, because Jonah just loves sharing all kinds of really cool knowledge with people. And I love just hanging out in chat, if nothing else, to just troll Jonah a little bit on how floats are stored in memory and all that kind of fun stuff. Jonan says in chat, group projects are crucial. Hiring someone who has mostly worked alone and discovering they're actually a lone wolf is pretty disastrous. Yeah, I agree. I think being able to work as part of a team is a really important part of just modern development. And I think it's an important thing that companies need to take a look at for sure. So yeah, I agree. Cool, this is fun. I love just hanging out and chatting. This is fun too. Let's chat for a couple more minutes, and I think I'll wrap up because we've been going for close to an hour and a half. But yeah, what else is going on? Silver, what are you up to these days? You got a new job recently, right? How's that new job going? Tell us about that job. What kind of stuff are you building, and what sort of tech stack are you in? Stuff like that. Viable Clan member asks, what are some group project ideas? I think any project could be a group project. It's just a question of how you sit down and figure out how you're going to split the work across multiple people. But you could split it up by like a front end and back end kind of component, and then the back end could split, based on how you're going to build the technology, and then how you're going to, maybe consume some third-party APIs. You could also just take a project you've already got and have other people like start contributing, and hey, now you've got a group project. So go find some friends and say, hey, I want to add a feature to your project. You add a feature to my project. Go find 3 friends and everybody add a feature to like one project of choice from that person. So I've got a project, and say Jonan, Silver, and Viable Clan member, you're all going to add a feature to my project. And now you're each going to give me a project, and I'm going to go add a feature to that. Now all 4 of us have group projects that used to be a solo project. Now you've got other people contributing. You're helping with code reviews. And so you could work on something that way. You don't necessarily have to merge the code. You just say like, hey, this is something that we're kind of collaborating on, or you could like branch off and take that project in another direction. Lots of different ways that you can do that kind of stuff, just as an idea. So you don't have to come up with like a whole new project idea. Just take a project you've already got and get other people to start contributing, and voila, group project. But Jonan says game jams, hackathons, open source projects. Yeah, those are all group projects just by nature. Open source projects are welcoming people to help contribute and so on. Yep. Silver says, thanks for asking. I'm still doing the Turing tech stack, so doing the Ruby on Rails backend. Good old Ruby on Rails. Yep. Postgres and all that good stuff. Good deal. And Silver, if I remember right, last time you were on the stream, you were asking about how to actually be part of an interview. You were actually looking to interview somebody who is more senior than yourself. I'm curious how that interview went for you. Did you have a chance to actually sit in on that? It's been an awesome learning experience so far. So much to learn. It never ends. Exactly. And I said this on the stream earlier tonight, and I've said it last several streams. You sign up for a job in tech, you are signing up for lifelong learning. It's never going to end. And that's what I love about it. I'm constantly learning new stuff. I'm looking forward to actually diving in on some front-end technology soon. I want to start building up some React stuff because I've never sat down to learn React. I still primarily stay in like the back-end domain, but I want to stretch myself and start getting into some front-end stuff. So if anybody's got some cool React resources, or want to sit down and like tutor me, or give me some code reviews on React, I'd love to get some input from folks too. Cool deal. All right. Well, it is Sunday night. It's almost 8:30. My kids are back in school tomorrow. They just finished their fall break. So I think I'm going to take off pretty soon and get them all ready for bed and all that stuff. Good times. Although one of them's a teenager now. He likes to exert his authority as a teenager and not go to bed on time. But yeah, I think we'll wrap up there and get some meal planning to do. And I think I'm doing a mock interview later tonight. So cool. I think I'll wrap up there. So, Jonan, again, from the bottom of all of our hearts, we wish you speedy recovery. Thanks for hanging out on the chat. I wasn't expecting you to hang out all night long, but it was good to hear from you. Hope that you're doing well. And yeah, I'll share that. I'm going to share that YouTube video with you right after this. So, cool. We'll see y'all. I'll be back on Thursday. Probably more Q&A. I really want to find someone to be on the Q&A with me. I'd love to hear someone kind of share their inputs and stuff as well. So it's not just me. I just don't want to be another white dude spouting opinions on the internet. I'd love to have someone on the stream and share their thoughts as well. So I'm going to try to arrange that for Thursday. I got a couple of people in mind, maybe a couple of folks that I've had on the stream in the past, and maybe we'll do like just groupthink Q&A around some of these questions that I still have kind of piling up. So keep sending me those questions. All my contact info is on the website, techinterview.guide. You can reach out to me there. You can reach out to me on email. You can follow me on Twitter and LinkedIn and send me messages that way. And I'm also part of like several communities where I'm like pulling questions out as well to kind of discuss and share my perspective. But yeah, have a great week, everybody. Be safe. And don't forget my challenge that I kind of kicked off the stream. Find 2 people that have helped you in some area of knowledge, and send them a note of gratitude this week. Don't ask for anything. Just say, hey, I was thinking about you, and I was thinking about how you helped me learn this particular thing, and I just wanted to pass along a thank you. You're going to make their day, I promise. So I challenge you to do that. Find 2 people that you can send that note to this week. And yeah, we'll see you all on Thursday. Have a good night, everyone.